5? 5. What? You okay?
Hey, Mr. 5 here, Credible Messenger on the move, Credible Messengers on the rise. It's the first week of phase 4, second week of phase 4 going into, which means all of the businesses are open. They're not opening in for full dining businesses, but sort of all of the commercial businesses are open back in New York. And what I don't understand, and what sort of confuses and complexes me at times, is this assumed normality. This assumed normality that people of color have received something. I don't know. What did we get extra? What did we get discounted? I'm on a bus today, going downtown. I seen a bus driver yelling at a man, "Pay your fare." Why are we, after billions of dollars have been absorbed from stimulus money to support the city and city industries and different private industries with most of the payroll protection money and all those things to help those businesses stay viable, the MTA is still now charging people, of course, fares to travel, but we're talking about citizens who are unemployed. 42% of black businesses nationally are closed and down. There is a sort of, I'm going to say it's a scandal, because most of the major Fortune 500 companies, corporations, and businesses got money from the government, while the small businesses they were supposed to be directed to are not getting it. Even the funding for test and trace are going to bigger corporations who have hundreds of millions of dollars and millions of dollars in their budget, but don't have the CBO status in the small business, sort of under $500,000 operational funds that sort of require you to be a CBO. And so, you know, I'm thinking about, and I'm looking at all of these things because of two things. One, we have an expectation of everything being normal. So you get back to work, the cops are back out running down on people, pulling over cars, locking people up, searching them. One of their first jobs and one of their first questions is, "Oh, are you working? Where are you coming from?" What are you talking about? This is a pandemic. Nobody's working. There is an economic freeze on people of color, and poor people have lost most of their jobs and positions, which those companies were still paid for to keep them. So I say that because, you know, historically we have been disenfranchised against for various racial and bias reasons, right? The Negro is not culturally strong enough. The Negro is not financially sound. The Negro is not smart enough. He's not equal. He's 3/5 of a man, and so he can't be qualified as equal rights as any other man. All of these sort of excuses has led to segregation, has led to lack of resources, has led to lack of education, has led to a period where they held mostly progressive people of color back. Even if you had college education, degrees, whatever, they held you back. They held you back from housing laws. There's restrictions on employment and how you're going to be able to own assets so that you can actually use that for the next generation's benefit, right? So we all know that the whole baby boom era was for white people. The summer of love was for white people while we were going through a summer of hell. Same year, 1968, 1969, 1967, right? Fast forward today, we're opening back up after a pandemic like everything is normal. Like, oh, you guys are going to work. What's going on? Nobody's working. Nobody has these positions. Nobody has security. People are still coming out every day struggling for food. Like, we're still spending money on PPE just to give people free masks because they can't afford it. So where's this expectation, and what did we get out of all of this, right? Yeah, we got a lot of posts, a lot of tweets, a lot of people that say, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter. A lot of people say, let's put people of color and black people first. How? Most of the people are in prison. So if you're not addressing criminal justice or anything supportive to help bridge that gap of financial inequality, then what are you doing? The other thing is this, right? There has been a sort of denial that this is a racial inequality. Yeah, it's all about race, right? But there's no admittance to that. It's saying, oh no, the world is fair. You can go out and get a job, you could be employed, you could take care of your family if you want to. that black people just possess some sort of criminality. But we haven't addressed the inequalities from those periods that we already know existed, right? Lack of education. There has been hundreds of years of us being kept out of schools, and there's a disproportionate amount of education. So yes, there should be afforded more educational resources. There is a lack of finances in the community because of white people were allowed to make money and hold bank accounts and have a lower percentage rate, or to actually own property so that they could actually count on that property to the depreciation of that property and the increased value of that property is how they're helping to support their kids. And so if you are in the same position as your son is in, it is not your fault, right? It is society who has disenfranchised you. So black people have to what? Run double time, work extra hard, triple hard to never catch up, because you can never catch up in a race that started 400 years ago, right? So where's this assumed support? Where's this normality? Where is this, what are you guys doing outside? Why are you at work? Who the fuck is working? What are you talking about? Why are you coming out, jumping out on us, asking us questions about what we're doing? Because my entire community is disenfranchised and still disproportionately unemployed. The mayor talks about not funding the police and funding crisis management and credible message. You ain't give nothing to credible messages. You're supporting the crisis management system under the budget, the same budget that you had before, the same budget you was given. You didn't support no new institute. You didn't give no sort of explosion money to create new messengers and mentors, none of that. All you did was some emergency responders money to certain groups that work with you and who agree with you and never talk bad about you. That is not government. Government doesn't mean when I challenge you, you then make my organization or the organizations we're associated with or our principles the enemy. You know, just my thoughts, because we live in a society where there's these expectations. And so what I don't, and what bothers me is that it's sometimes this discrimination between people who are stable, meaning they have an income, and people who are unstable who don't have an income. There was always a distinction in the community of those people that live in the projects and those people that live in private homes or a tenant building, because the lower 10% of society is always looked at as a problem and just like somehow costing everybody else. Like, how was this guy getting on his bus who didn't have money to pay for his fare impacting him? Was the fare really going into his bank account or something? Like, was that his personal need to humiliate or shame this person on the microphone to tell him, oh, you don't have to pay your fare? When fare paying just started from a whole 4 or 5 months of free rides because no one's employed, everybody's quarantined. And so this opening back up where everybody's expected to buy food and take care of themselves and just do what they're doing, when there has been no stimulus for us. There has been no support for us in the hood. There has been no benefit for us in the hood. There has been no, this is what's gonna change, because we demanded and stayed fast at our demand that Black Lives Matter and that we would take no settlement unless it impacted us too. Wasn't even a settlement offered. And we are just complacently back to running New York, and 42% of black businesses are down and mostly people are unemployed. And it's all attributed to this increase in violence, which is a whole nother topic, because why do you look at violence as what a person does when they're oppressed to get money to survive, or what they've done in a desperate situation? I look at violence as the kids in my neighborhood's not eating. I look at violence as the fact that the elderly are still begging for change to the corner because their social services or the housing support system that supposed to exist doesn't exist, or the other resources that they need to survive aren't there. I look at violence at the fact that in New York State you could be 16, 17 charged an adult, but it takes you 18. At 18 you could be kicked out of your residence legally. You can't get food stamps or a public assistance case until 6 months past your 22nd birthday, and you're not legally an adult till you're 21. So there's a lot of gaps, and our kids live, fall, sleep, and are homeless, stuck in those gaps. We have a criminal justice system that gives kids 6 months of Rikers and 5 years on probation. What program runs for 5 years? So we are a city of creating problems and then having to institute solutions, or waiting for a CBO to spend their funding or money, whatever they have, to create those solutions, and then we don't support them back. The state's going to change, but it's going to take us to continue to fight for these things for them to actually unfold. And so those are just a little bit of my thoughts, because there is this assumed normality. There is this assumed everybody's okay and get back to work and New York's back open. Let's start charging for the bus. Let's start charging for the train. Let's put 3, 4, 5, 10 cops in the train station and make sure we lock up people, knowing that the majority of people don't have the money. It's like a setup to fail, right? And it's also a setup to induce this system of constant and more incarceration into the city systems. Sometimes you feel frustrated because you know what's going on. I'm sitting there with these city officials and legislators, and they just be bullshit me to my face. And none of them has made the step to invest into additional measures to create additional barriers in between the city, which is sometimes the NYPD and other officials, and the community, because that gap needs to be filled. While we waiting, I get them buttons, bro. Yeah. Subscribe.
You know, right there. Tap it.
Tap them shits right there.
Tap that button.